My name is Dorothy Henderson, but everyone calls me Dot. I'm 62 years old, born and raised right here in Atlanta, Georgia. For 35 years, I worked as an educator, started as a young English teacher with big dreams, and retired as the principal of one of the most respected high schools in the city. I was married to a good man named Marcus for 38 beautiful years before a heart attack stole him from me 5 years ago. And I'm the grandmother of twin girls, Mia and Maya, who just turned 6 and have had my heart wrapped around their little fingers since the day they were born. I'm telling you all of this because what I'm about to share might make you question everything you think you know about family. Take a deep breath, because I never imagined I'd be sitting here telling this story. The words I overheard in my own son's house, words spoken by my daughter-in-law about me, changed everything I thought I understood about love, sacrifice, and exactly how much I was worth to the people I'd given my whole life to. It was a Tuesday, a regular, ordinary Tuesday in March. I was at Terrence and Simone's house doing what I'd done 4 days a week for 5 years, watching my grandbabies while their parents worked. The twins were napping upstairs, and I was in the guest room folding a basket of laundry. Simone's laundry, to be specific. Clothes I'd washed, dried, and was now folding because I wanted to be helpful. Because that's who I am. That's who I've always been. If this story is already speaking to something in your heart, I want you to do me a favor. Hit that like button right now and subscribe to Black Lady Tales so you don't miss what happens next. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing that my story is reaching people all around this world. Now let me tell you what I heard through that wall. Simone's home office was right next door to the guest room. The walls in that house aren't thick. I should know since I paid for them. I could hear she was on a video call, laughing with her girlfriends about something. At first I smiled. It was nice to hear her relaxed, enjoying herself. I kept folding towels, not really listening. Then I heard my name. "Girl, Dorothy is here again," Simone said, her voice carrying clear through the drywall. "She's in the guest room right now, probably reorganizing my linen closet or something. I swear that woman cannot stay away." I stopped folding. My hands hovered over a bath towel, suddenly frozen. "But at least you have free childcare," one of her friends said through the speaker. Simone laughed. Not a warm laugh, something sharper. "That's the only reason I put up with it. You know what I keep telling Terrence? Once the old bat finally dies, we'll finally be free. We can actually travel, live our lives without her hovering over us constantly." The towel slipped from my fingers. "Girl, that's cold," another friend cackling. "I'm serious." Simone continued, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "She's 62 and healthy as a horse. Could be another 20 years of this. 20 more years of Sunday dinners I have to pretend to enjoy. 20 more years of her just stopping by with groceries I didn't ask for. 20 more years of acting grateful." I couldn't move. My heart was slamming against my ribs so hard I thought they might hear it through the wall. "What about Terrence? Doesn't he say anything?" Simone snorted. "Terrence is a mama's boy, but he knows the deal. He's just as ready to be done with the obligation as I am. We've already talked about what we'll do with the money once she's gone. Finally take that European trip, maybe buy a vacation home." One of her friends lowered her voice, conspiratorial. "How much are we talking?" "Enough," Simone replied. "Trust me, enough to make all this smiling and pretending worth it." The laughter that followed was like ice water poured directly into my chest. I stood there in that guest room, surrounded by my daughter-in-law's clean laundry, and I felt something inside me crack. Not break, not yet, but crack. Like a foundation that had been holding up too much weight for too long. Old Bat, that's what she called me. The woman who had given her the down payment for this house. The woman who watched her children for free while she built her career. The woman who cooked her Sunday dinners and bought her daughter's birthday presents and never, not once, asked for anything in return except to be loved. Old Bat. I wanted to storm into that room. I wanted to throw open the door and ask her to say it to my face. I wanted to scream, to cry, to demand an apology that would never undo what I'd just heard. But I didn't do any of those things, because here's what Simone didn't know. Here's what my own son apparently didn't know. The very floor her feet were resting on while she wished for my death, that floor belonged to me. The walls that couldn't keep her secrets? Mine. The roof keeping rain off her ungrateful head? Mine. Every single inch of that house she was so eager to inherit was already legally, completely, entirely mine. My name was on that deed. My money had paid for it. And she had no idea. She thought she was waiting for me to die so she could finally live. I was about to show her what waiting really looked like. I took 3 deep breaths, the way I used to do before difficult parent conferences back when I was principal. I picked up that towel from the floor. I folded it perfectly, creased it just right, and placed it on the pile with the others. Then I quietly gathered my purse from the kitchen, left a note saying I had a headache and needed to leave early, and walked out of that house without saying goodbye to anyone. Simone never knew I'd heard a word. I drove home with my hands steady on the wheel and my mind racing 1,000 miles an hour. By the time I pulled into my own driveway, the driveway of a house that was fully paid off, that Marcus and I had worked 40 years for, I had already started making a plan. But to understand why those words cut so deep, I need to tell you what I've given to that family, everything I sacrificed, everything I provided, everything they somehow convinced themselves they deserved. Let me take you back because you need to understand who I was before I became the old bat. I started teaching at 25 years old, fresh out of Spelman College with a master's degree in education and a heart full of hope. For 35 years, I poured myself into Atlanta's children. I taught English literature for 15 years before moving into administration. I became assistant principal at 45 and principal at 50. I retired 2 years ago from a high school that sent 94% of its graduates to college. I say this not to brag, but so you understand, I know my worth. I spent my whole career teaching young people to know theirs. Marcus and I met at a church picnic when I was 23. He was 25, tall and quiet with hands roughened from his job at the electric company. He wasn't flashy. He was steady. We married a year later and spent the next 38 years building a life together. We bought our house in 1989, paid off the mortgage in 2010, and saved every extra penny for retirement. Marcus used to say, "Dot, we're going to spend our golden years traveling the world." We had brochures for Ghana, for Portugal, for Martha's Vineyard. We were going to see it all. Then, on a Thursday morning 5 years ago, Marcus went to get the newspaper from the driveway and never came back inside. Massive heart attack. He was gone before the ambulance arrived. I don't have words for that kind of grief. 38 years of partnership, of inside jokes and shared silences, of someone who knew exactly how I took my coffee. And then nothing. An empty house, a cold bed, silence so loud it felt like screaming. Terrence is my only child. He was 33 when his father died, already married to Simone for 3 years, with twin babies just a year old. I threw myself into being a grandmother because I needed something to live for. I needed those little girls and their chubby cheeks and their reaching arms. I needed to feel necessary, and Terrence and Simone were happy to let me be necessary when it suited them. In 2019, just months after Marcus passed, Terrence called me with a request. He and Simone wanted to buy a house, a nice 4-bedroom in a good school district, perfect for raising the twins. The problem was their credit. Simone had some old debt from her 20s, and Terrence had missed some payments during the recession years back. No bank would give them a favorable mortgage rate. "Mama," Terrence said, his voice carrying that same sweetness he'd used as a boy when he wanted an extra cookie. "What if we did it differently? What if you bought the house in your name and we paid you rent? Just until we get our credit together, then we'll transfer the deed." $80,000. That's what I put down. My money, my savings, money. Marcus and I had set aside for those trips we'd never take. I didn't hesitate. He was my son. Those were my grandbabies. Family helps family. We set up what I thought was a reasonable arrangement. They'd pay me $1,200 a month in rent, well below market rate for a house that nice. I put the deed in my name with the understanding that we'd transfer it to theirs within a year or two, once their credit improved. That was 5 years ago. Terrence's credit score has been above 700 for 3 years now. Simone paid off her old debt in 2021. There is absolutely nothing stopping them from qualifying for their own mortgage. But every time I've gently brought up the transfer, something comes up. The timing isn't right. The market is unstable. They're waiting for interest rates to drop. After a while, I stopped asking. I told myself it didn't matter whose name was on the paper. It was their home. I was just helping. But let me tell you what else I've been doing for 5 years. 4 days a week, I drive 45 minutes from my house to theirs. I arrive at 7 in the morning before the twins wake up, and I stay until 6 in the evening after Simone gets home from work. I make the girls breakfast. I take them to school. I pick them up. I help with homework. I cook them dinner. I bathe them when Simone is running late. If they hired a nanny to do what I do, it would cost them at minimum $2,000 a month. That's $24,000 a year. Over 5 years, that's $120,000 I've saved them, without a single thank you that felt genuine. And that $1,200 a month they pay me in rent? I've never spent a penny of it. Every single check has gone into a savings account I opened in Mia and Maya's names. A college fund, $72,000, sitting there earning interest, waiting for the day my grandbabies need it. They have no idea. But wait, there's more. The twins' birthday parties? I pay for them. Every year, I write a check for the catering, the decorations, the bouncy castle. Simone picks out what she wants, and I foot the bill. Last year's princess party cost $3,200. Christmas gifts, me. Easter baskets, me. The gymnastics classes, the piano lessons, the summer camp fees, me. And the vacations. Oh, the vacations. 2 years ago, Terrence mentioned they wanted to take the twins to Disney World. Simone had her heart set on staying at the Grand Floridian. I offered to help, and they accepted. $6,000 for a 5-day trip, a trip I wasn't invited on. It's a nuclear family thing, Mama, Terrence explained. Just us and the girls. You understand? I understood. I smiled. I handed over the check. Last year, it was a cruise. Another $4,000. Another trip without Grandma. I funded experiences I was never welcome to share. I gave and gave and gave, telling myself that this was what good mothers do. Good grandmothers. This was love. But something had been shifting long before that Tuesday. Small things I'd brushed aside, excuses I'd made for people who didn't deserve my grace. I remember the first time I heard Simone's tone change. It was about 2 years into the arrangement. I'd stopped by unannounced with groceries. I did that sometimes, just trying to help, and I overheard her on the phone in the kitchen before she knew I was there. "Your mother is always here," she said to Terrence. "I swear I can't turn around without seeing her face." Terrence's response, muffled through the phone, was apparently not defensive enough, because Simone softened her voice when she noticed me standing in the doorway with bags in my hands. "Oh, Dorothy, I didn't hear you come in. Is that groceries? You're too sweet." Too sweet. The same mouth that had just complained about my presence. I should have said something then. I should have asked my son why his wife felt burdened by my love. But I didn't. I smiled, put away the groceries, and drove home telling myself I'd misheard. Misunderstood. That family was complicated, and I needed to give them grace. For 5 years, I told myself I was being a good mother, a good grandmother. I told myself their distance was just busy lives, not cold hearts. But that Tuesday, with Simone's laughter still ringing in my ears, I started paying attention. And what I discovered was so much worse than one cruel conversation. The morning after I overheard Simone, I woke up before sunrise. I'd barely slept, just lay there in the dark, replaying those words over and over. Old bat, 20 more years of pretending, waiting for me to die. Part of me wanted to believe I'd misunderstood. Maybe it was dark humor. Maybe Simone was just venting to her friends the way people do. Maybe I was making something out of nothing. So I decided to watch, to pay attention, to see my family with clear eyes for the first time in years. I showed up at their house at 7 that morning. Same as always. Simone was rushing around the kitchen, half-dressed, searching for her car keys. When she saw me, her face transformed. That smile appeared, bright and warm, crinkling the corners of her eyes. "Dorothy, thank God you're here. I'm running so late. Can you make sure the girls eat something real for breakfast? Not just cereal?" "Of course, baby," I said, setting down my purse. "You go on. I've got everything handled." She blew me a kiss on her way out the door, a kiss from the same lips that had called me an old bat less than 24 hours ago. I watched her through the window as she climbed into the car I'd helped them afford, trading in my own sedan so they could have a lower payment on their SUV. She checked her makeup in the mirror, applied lipstick, and drove away without a backward glance. The twins came bouncing downstairs, still in their pajamas, and threw themselves into my arms. "Grandma Dot! Grandma Dot!" Their joy was real, pure, no performance. Mia grabbed my hand. "Can we have pancakes? You make the best pancakes." "With the smiley faces?" Maya added, hopping up and down. "With the smiley faces," I confirmed, scooping them both up, one on each hip. These babies loved me. That much I knew for certain. Whatever their parents felt, Mia and Maya's affection wasn't conditional. It wasn't a transaction. But as the days passed, I started noticing things I'd trained myself to ignore. When Simone needed me to stay late because she had a work thing, she was all warmth and gratitude. "Dorothy, you're a lifesaver. I don't know what we'd do without you." But when I mentioned stopping by on a Saturday, my day off from babysitting, just to see the girls, her smile tightened. "This Saturday? We actually have plans. Family time." "You understand?" I understood. Family time that didn't include the family member who made their regular time possible. When Terrence came home in the evenings, he'd greet me with a quick hug and an even quicker escape to his home office. "Hey, Mama, thanks for today. I've got some work calls to finish up." Gone before I could ask him how he was, how his job was going, if he'd eaten lunch. I started keeping a journal. Every night, I'd sit at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and write down what I'd observed that day. Simone's eye roll when I offered to help fold laundry. Terrence's distracted when I tried to tell him about the girls' school concert. The way conversation stopped when I entered rooms. 2 weeks in, my friend Claudette called me with something that turned my stomach. Claudette's daughter, Keisha, was connected to Simone through some mommy blogger group on social media, the kind of private group where women share their frustrations about life, marriage, in-laws. "Dot," Claudette said, her voice heavy with reluctance. "I need to show you something. Keisha sent me screenshots. I thought you should see what that girl is saying about you." My hands trembled as I opened the images on my phone. The first post was from 3 months ago. Simone had written, "Does anyone else's ML think she's helping when she's actually just inserting herself into everything? Mine shows up with groceries nobody asked for and then acts hurt when we're not sufficiently grateful. It's emotional manipulation disguised as generosity." The comments were full of supportive responses. "Set boundaries, Queen. You don't owe her your peace." Some MILs need to understand they raise their kids, and that's where the job ended. There were more posts, so many more. One complained about how I guilted them into letting me babysit. She literally cried when I suggested we hire a nanny so she could have her own life. I mean, what was I supposed to say? So now I'm stuck with her in my house 4 days a week. Cried. I never cried. I'd offered to help. When they mentioned a nanny, I simply said I was happy to do it, that spending time with my grandbabies was a joy, not a burden. I never shed a single tear. Another post accused me of inviting myself to Sunday dinners. Every week she asks what time dinner is and then just shows up. Never brings anything useful either, just a pie or something that makes the rest of us look bad because we didn't bake from scratch. Those Sunday dinners. Simone had asked me 3 years ago if I could start coming regularly. The girls love having you here, and honestly, Dorothy, your cooking is so much better than mine. Could you make dinner for all of us? It would be such a help. I'd said yes, of course, because that's what I do. I help. I'd been set up. Every act of service I performed had been reframed as intrusion. Every gift I gave had been labeled manipulation. In Simone's narrative, I was the villain, the suffocating mother-in-law who wouldn't give her space to breathe. And my son? According to these posts, he agreed with everything. Terrence gets it. He's just too nice to say anything to her face. Too nice. My child was too nice to defend his mother against lies. I closed the screenshots and sat in silence for a very long time. The next day, I called Patricia Wells. Patricia and I went back 40 years. She'd been a young lawyer when I was a young teacher, and we'd stayed friends through marriages, careers, children, and loss. She was retired now, too, but still sharp as the edge of new scissors. "Dot, what's going on?" she asked. "You sound different." I told her everything. The overheard conversation, the social media posts, the 5 years of service that had been rewarded with contempt. "Patricia, I need you to look at the paperwork for that house, the one I bought for Terrence and Simone." "What about it?" "I need to know exactly where I stand, legally." It took Patricia 3 days to review everything. When she called me back, her voice was firm and clear. "Dot, this house is 100% yours. Your name on the deed, your money for the down payment. There's no legal document anywhere that suggests a transfer was ever formalized or even officially agreed upon. They have no claim whatsoever." I exhaled a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "And Dot," Patricia continued, "while I had you on my mind, I pulled up that will we drafted after Marcus passed, the one that leaves your entire estate to Terrence." My entire estate, my paid-off house in Atlanta, worth around $600,000 in today's market. The house Terrence and Simone live in, worth another $400,000. My retirement accounts, close to $700,000 after decades of careful saving, and Marcus's pension. Life insurance policies totaling $250,000, some savings, investments, nearly $2 million when you added it all up. That's a lot of money going to someone who's waiting for you to die, Patricia said quietly. The weight of that truth settled onto my shoulders like a physical thing. My son and his wife had built their financial future around my death. They were living in my house, saving my rent checks, letting me raise their children, counting down the years until they could cash in on my life's work and finally be free of me. And I had made it all possible. I had made it easy. I had spent 5 years being so desperate to feel needed that I'd let them treat me like an ATM with a pulse. No more. I spent the next week finalizing my observations. I documented every interaction, every slight, every moment of disrespect I'd previously convinced myself to overlook. I reviewed bank statements, credit card bills, evidence of the lifestyle I was funding. I added up the money, the down payment, the childcare, the gifts, the vacations, the parties, the loans that were never repaid. $327,000. That's what I had poured into their lives in 5 years. That's not counting the house I was letting them live in for below-market rent, or the college fund they didn't know existed. $327,000 from a woman they called an old bat and couldn't wait to bury. I spent 3 weeks watching, documenting, understanding. 3 weeks of smiling through Sunday dinners while my heart broke a little more each time. And then, on a Friday evening when Terrence stopped by alone to check on me, I decided to test him. What he said that night showed me exactly who my son had become. Terrence showed up at my door that Friday evening with a bottle of wine and a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. In 38 years of being his mother, I'd learned to read my son like a book with large print. That particular expression meant he wanted something. "Hey, Mama," he said, kissing my cheek as he stepped inside. "Just thought I'd stop by and check on you. See how you're doing." Check on me. Terrence hadn't checked on me without an agenda in years, but I smiled and took the wine, a decent Merlot, probably Simone's choosing, and led him to the living room. "This is a nice surprise," I said, settling into my armchair. "Where's Simone and the girls?" "At home. I just wanted some one-on-one time with my mama." He sat on the couch across from me, legs spread wide, looking around my living room like he was appraising it. "You've got this place looking good. Real good." I watched him take in the artwork on the walls, the antique furniture Marcus and I had collected over decades, the built-in bookshelves lined with first editions. I'd caught that look before but never let myself name it. Now I recognized it clearly. He was calculating. "Can I get you something to drink?" I asked. "I've got sweet tea, lemonade." "I'm fine, Mama." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something. Simone and I have been thinking about the future. Our future. And yours." "Here it comes," I thought, but I kept my face pleasant. "Oh? Yeah, you're not getting any younger. I don't mean that in a bad way," he added quickly, seeing something in my expression. "I just mean, have you thought about what you want? Long term?" This was my opening, the test I'd been planning. "Funny you should ask," I said, keeping my voice light and casual. "I've actually been doing a lot of thinking lately. About my future. About changes I might want to make." Terrence's eyebrows rose. "Changes? Your father and I always talked about traveling after we retired. We never got the chance." I paused, letting the weight of Marcus's absence fill the room for a moment. "I've been looking at some retirement communities. There's a lovely one down in Florida, right on the water. They have organized trips, social activities, the whole thing." The shift in Terrence's posture was immediate. He sat up straighter, his casual demeanor evaporating. "Florida? Mama, that's a big move. What about the girls? They'd miss you so much." "I'd miss them too, but they have their parents. They'd be fine." "And Sunday dinners? You'd just stop doing Sunday dinners?" I tilted my head, studying my son. Not once had he asked if this move would make me happy. Not once had he inquired about what I wanted for myself. His very first thoughts were about what he would lose. "I've been cooking Sunday dinners for 5 years, baby. Maybe it's time for someone else to take over." Terrence's jaw tightened. "Mama, I don't think you've really thought this through. We have an arrangement. It works for everyone." "Does it?" I asked softly. He didn't seem to hear the edge in my question. "Of course it does. You love spending time with Mia and Maya, and we love having you around. It would be crazy to throw that away for some retirement community." I let the silence stretch between us. Then I said, "There's something else I've been considering. My will." The color drained from Terrence's face. It happened so fast, so visibly, that I felt something inside me die a little. "Your will?" His voice came out slightly strangled. "What about it?" "I had it drawn up right after your father passed. Left everything to you, of course. But I've been thinking maybe I should update it, make some different arrangements." Terrence stood up abruptly, pacing to the window and back. When he turned to face me, the mask he usually wore had slipped completely. "Different arrangements? Mama, what are you talking about? Simone and we've been counting on—" He stopped himself, but not quickly enough. "Counting on what, baby?" The silence that followed was excruciating. I watched my son struggle with words, watched him realize he'd revealed too much. We assumed. I mean, you always said family takes care of family." He was scrambling now. "We figured when you eventually, the house, your savings, all of that would help secure the girls' future and ours. Eventually. When I eventually died." There it was, spoken aloud by my own son. They had built their financial plans around my death. I took a slow breath. So, you and Simone have been making plans for my money? That's not what Mama, you're twisting my words. Am I? He had the decency to look ashamed, but I recognized the calculation behind his eyes, even as he tried to backpedal. Of course we want you to live a long, healthy life. We're not wishing anything bad on you. His voice dropped. It's just smart to plan ahead, that's all. And honestly, Mama, the way things are set up now, it makes sense. You help us, we take care of you when you're older, and eventually the assets stay in the family. It's how it's supposed to work. Supposed to work, like I was a piece of the machinery in their life plan. Input, grandmother's labor and money. Output, comfortable lifestyle now, inheritance later. I think you should go, Terrence. Mama, I'm tired. We'll talk more later. He left reluctantly, glancing back at me with something that might have been concern, but looked more like worry about what I might do next. I closed the door behind him and stood in my hallway until I heard his car pull away. Then I walked to my kitchen table and sat down heavily. The house was silent around me. Marcus's absence felt particularly sharp in that moment. He would have known what to say, how to make sense of this. I was about to stand up and make myself some tea when I noticed the folder on my counter. Terrence must have set it down when he came in and forgotten it in his rush to leave. Inside were bank statements, their bank statements, from a joint account I'd never known about. I shouldn't have looked, but after everything I'd heard and seen over the past 3 weeks, I couldn't help myself. The numbers told a story that made my stomach turn. $43,000. That's what they had saved in something labeled Beach House Fund. $43,000 set aside for a vacation home, while they claimed they couldn't afford to repay the $12,000 they'd borrowed from me 2 years ago for Simone's car repair. Money they swore they'd pay back as soon as they got caught up. I flipped through more pages. Dinners at expensive restaurants, $300 here, $400 there. A new designer handbag for Simone, $1,800. Terrence's golf club membership, $200 monthly. This was where my free labor had gone. This was what my sacrifice had purchased. Not struggling young parents trying to make ends meet. Comfortable, entitled adults saving for a vacation home while their mother worked for free and their grandmother provided everything from childcare to Christmas presents. I put the statements down and walked to my bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed Marcus and I had shared for 38 years, and for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I cried. Not delicate tears, deep, ugly sobs that shook my whole body. I cried for the son I thought I'd raised, the little boy who used to climb into my lap and say, "Mama, when I grow up, I'm going to buy you a big house and you'll never have to work again." I cried for the years I'd wasted trying to earn love from people who saw me as nothing more than a means to an end. I cried for Marcus, who would have seen through Simone years ago if I'd only let him speak his mind. When the tears finally stopped, something else took their place, something cold and clear and certain. I picked up my phone. Patricia answered on the second ring. "Dot, it's late. Everything okay? I need you to start the paperwork. The house, the will, all of it. We're making changes." Then I called my financial advisor and gave him similar instructions. Finally, I called my best friend Vera, who'd been warning me about Simone since the wedding. "I should have listened to you years ago," I told her. "Better late than never, honey. What are you going to do?" I looked around my bedroom, at the photos of Marcus, at the life we'd built together, at everything I'd almost handed over to people who didn't deserve it. I'm going to remind them who Dorothy Henderson is. That night, I made phone calls to my attorney Patricia, to my financial advisor, to my best friend Vera, who'd been telling me for years that Simone was no good. I told them all the same thing. I'm done being the family ATM and free babysitter. It's time they learn what life looks like without Mama. What happened at the next Sunday dinner is something they'll never forget. The following Sunday, Terrence's car pulled into my driveway at exactly 5 o'clock. I watched from my living room window as he, Simone, and the twins climbed out. Simone was carrying a bottle of wine, her version of a contribution, while the girls ran ahead toward my front door. What they didn't know was that this would be the last Sunday dinner they'd ever take for granted. I opened the door, and immediately the twins threw themselves at my legs. "Grandma Dot! Grandma Dot!" Their pure joy, as always, pierced straight through the anger I'd been carefully nurturing. These babies had done nothing wrong. They loved me genuinely, without conditions or calculations. "Hey, my sweet girls," I said, hugging them tight. "Guess what? Mrs. Patterson from next door has set up a whole tea party in her backyard, just for you two. She's got cookies and everything." Their eyes went wide. "Really? Can we go, Mama?" Maya asked, bouncing on her heels. Simone looked confused but nodded. "Sure, baby, go have fun." I walked the girls over to Carol Patterson's yard, where my neighbor was waiting with her own grandchildren. Carol caught my eye and nodded once, understanding. When I returned to my house, Terrence and Simone were standing in my living room with identical expressions of confusion. The dining table wasn't set. No aromas of roasting meat or baking bread drifted from the kitchen. Instead, I was dressed in a cream silk blouse and tailored navy pants. Church clothes, not cooking clothes. On the coffee table sat a manila folder thick with documents. "Mama?" Terrence said slowly. "What's going on? Where's dinner?" "There's no dinner tonight." I gestured to the couch. "Sit down. We need to have a family meeting." Simone exchanged a glance with Terrence but complied, perching on the edge of the sofa like she was ready to flee. Terrence sat beside her, his body angled toward me, wary. I settled into my armchair across from them, the same chair I'd sat in when Terrence revealed himself, the same chair where I'd made my decision. "I've made some changes," I began, keeping my voice even and calm, "and I thought you should hear about them directly from me." "Changes?" Simone's voice was sharp. "What kind of changes?" I picked up the folder and opened it. First, the house, the one you've been living in for 5 years. I pulled out the property deed and held it up. As you know, it's in my name. It always has been, and I've decided to sell it. The explosion was immediate. "What?" Simone shot to her feet. "You can't do that. That's our home, our children's home." "No, Simone." I kept my voice steady. "It's my home. I paid the $80,000 down payment. My name is on the deed. There's no legal document anywhere that grants you ownership or even tenancy beyond what I've allowed, and I'm no longer allowing it." Terrence's face had gone gray. "Mama, you can't be serious. Where are we supposed to go?" "That's not my concern anymore." Simone sank back onto the couch, her mouth opening and closing like she couldn't find words. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "There's more," I continued. "I know what you've been saying about me, Simone. What you've been telling your friends." Her eyes flickered. "I don't know what you're talking about." I pulled out my phone. "Let me refresh your memory." The recording was excellent quality. I'd learned that my phone could capture audio surprisingly well through a wall, especially when pressed against it. Simone's voice filled my living room, crystal clear. "Girl, once the old bat finally dies, we'll finally be free. She's 62 and healthy as a horse. Could be another 20 years of this." Her friend's laughter. "We've already talked about what we'll do with the money once she's gone. Finally take that European trip. Maybe buy a vacation home." I pressed stop. The silence that followed was absolute. Simone's face had gone from pink to white to something approaching green. Terrence wouldn't look at either of us. That was... Simone's voice came out strangled. That was taken out of context. I was venting. Everyone vents about their in-laws. "You were wishing for my death," I corrected her gently, "so you could finally travel, so you could inherit my money. Money you apparently believe you're entitled to." "I didn't mean, let me tell you what I've given to this family." I pulled another document from the folder. $80,000 for your down payment. Approximately $120,000 in childcare over 5 years. That's what a nanny would have cost you. $17,000 in loans that were never repaid. $3,200 for the twins' birthday party last year. $6,000 for your Disney vacation. $4,000 for the cruise. Christmas gifts, Easter baskets, school supplies, gymnastics, piano lessons. I looked up from the paper. $327,000. That's what I've contributed to your lives in 5 years, and in return, you call me an old bat and count down the days until I die. Terrence finally spoke. Mama, please, we're family. We love you. I met my son's eyes. You loved what I could give you. There's a difference. He flinched like I'd slapped him. I've also revised my will, I continued. Your father and I built an estate worth nearly $2 million. It was going to go to you, Terrence, all of it. But now, I pulled out the new documents. I've established a scholarship fund in Marcus's name. It will help young people from our community attend college. And the remainder goes into a trust for Mia and Maya, a trust you cannot touch until they turn 25. Simone let out a sound that might have been a sob or a scream. You can't do this, she gasped. This is cruel. You're destroying our family. I stood up, suddenly tired of this conversation. No, Simone. I'm protecting myself from a family that was using me. There's a difference. I handed Terrence an envelope. His hands shook as he took it. That's a formal 90-day notice to vacate my property. You have 3 months to find somewhere else to live. Mama. Terrence's eyes were wet. I'm sorry. Whatever we did, whatever Simone said, I'm sorry. Please don't do this. It's already done. I walked to the front door and opened it. The evening air was cool and smelled of jasmine from my garden, the garden I'd planted, the garden I'd tended, the garden that was mine. I'm 62 years old, I said, turning back to face them, and I'm healthy. I plan to live another 30 years, and I plan to live them for myself. They gathered their things in stunned silence. Simone's tears had turned angry, her face blotchy and twisted. Terrence moved like a man underwater, slow and bewildered. At the door, I hugged each of my granddaughters tight. They didn't understand what was happening, but they could feel the tension. Grandma Dot, why is Mommy crying? Mia whispered. Grown-up things, baby, don't you worry. Grandma's going to see you real soon. I love you. Love you too, Grandma. I watched them drive away, watched until the taillights disappeared around the corner. Then I closed my door, walked to my living room, and sat in silence. It didn't feel like victory. Not exactly. It felt like surgery. Painful but necessary. The cutting away of something that had been slowly killing me. For the first time in 5 years, my house felt peaceful. Truly peaceful. No performance required, no gratitude to fake. Just me, Dorothy Henderson, finally choosing myself. They left my house in stunned silence. No apologies that night, just shock and rage that the woman they'd dismissed had outsmarted them all. But the story doesn't end there. What happened in the months that followed changed my life in ways I never expected. And the lesson my granddaughters learned from all of this, that's what I want to leave you with. 3 months passed faster than I expected. Terrence and Simone found a 2-bedroom apartment in a less desirable part of town, the only thing they could afford once they had to pay market rent and full-price childcare. I heard through friends that their marriage was strained, with Terrence finally seeing how Simone's entitlement had cost them everything. He came to my door alone one Saturday morning, hat in hand, looking like the little boy he'd once been. Mama, I'm so sorry, he said, and I could tell he meant it. I lost my way. I let Simone's influence. I forgot who raised me. I forgot what mattered. I listened. I didn't interrupt. When he finished, I took his hand. I forgive you, Terrence. You're my son, and I'll always love you. But forgiveness and trust are different things. Trust has to be rebuilt. Slowly, if at all. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. Can I still see the girls? He asked. Can they still see you? That's non-negotiable, I said firmly. Those babies are innocent in all of this. I will always be their grandmother. And I have been. Mia and Maya spend every other weekend with me now. I've started teaching them things, not just baking and gardening, but wisdom. Always have something that's just yours, I told them recently while we made cookies. Something nobody can take away. Always know your worth. Maya looked up at me with chocolate chips on her fingers. What's worth mean, Grandma? It means understanding how special you are, baby, and never letting anyone make you feel like you're less. The house sold for $420,000, more than I'd invested, even accounting for the years of below-market rent. With that money and my savings, I finally took the trips Marcus and I had dreamed about. Ghana first. I spent 2 weeks there, tracing my heritage, standing on the coast where my ancestors had been stolen, weeping and healing in equal measure. Then Portugal, with its cobblestone streets and pastel de nata that melted on my tongue. Martha's Vineyard last summer, sitting on a beach reading novels, surrounded by other Black women my age who refused to be invisible. The scholarship fund in Marcus's name has already helped 3 students attend college. Last month, I met one of them, a young woman studying nursing who reminded me of myself at that age, ambitious, determined, ready to build something. You gave me a chance, Mrs. Henderson, she said, hugging me tight. I thought of all the chances I'd given to people who didn't deserve them, and I was glad I could redirect that generosity towards someone who appreciated it. My life now is quieter than before, but it's full. I've joined a book club with women who've lived stories as complicated as mine. I volunteer at the community center on Thursdays. I wake up when I want, eat what I want, and answer to no one. At 62, I discovered something important. It's never too late to choose yourself. If you're watching this and you're giving everything to people who offer nothing but contempt in return, hear me clearly. You deserve better. Your love, your labor, your resources, they have value. Don't pour from an empty cup for people who won't even hand you a glass of water when you're thirsty. Now, before I go, I want you to do something for me. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe to Black Lady Tales. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing my voice is reaching people around the world. And if you've ever had to set boundaries with family who was taking you for granted, share your story too. We learn from each other. Thank you for sitting with me through this. Until next time, remember, you are never too old to choose yourself. My name is Dorothy Henderson. My daughter-in-law called me the old bat and wished for my death. Now she's paying full rent somewhere else, and I'm watching the sunset in Accra, Ghana, thinking about all the places I'll visit next. Turns out 62 and healthy is a beautiful thing, especially when you finally start living for yourself.